Hi there, my name is Dan, and welcome back to All One, the United Anatomy of Being. This is episode 13, called The Separating Mind, another important puzzle piece that we need to understand or reveal before we can start assembling. So, a fundamental truth of the mind is that it is very good at differentiating or separating, and not so good, at least on its own, of not separating. This has been, still is, and will continue to be a very useful and completely crucial trait for understanding anything. And it is a very useful and completely crucial trait for continuing to develop the human mind and continuing to survive on the physical level. The reason is that even though on one level, everything in physical existence is ultimately made up of the same small things just arranged in different ways, and on a higher level, made up of the same energies which are physically manifested in different ways, on the lowest or least subtle level, there are undoubtedly countless different physical things in existence that the mind desires or even needs to comprehend. So there is seemingly an infinite amount of individual things in the physical universe, some of which we are not even aware, and some of which are not yet created, as the universe is also constantly changing. But there are so many different plants, animals, insects, and birds. There are so many different solids, liquids, and gases, so many different organisms, many of which humans cannot see without tools to amplify them. There are so many different things constantly moving around us in the celestial skies. And if one considers all of these different things individually, like every single being, every grain of sand, every single star, or even every single atom, it truly is infinite as it relates to the capacity of the human mind. A fundamental characteristic of the mind is that as soon as there is perception and experience of more than one thing, the mind differentiates between them. This flower is different from that flower. This being is different from that being. This taste is different from that taste. This sound is different from that sound. The night is different from the day, and on it goes. This color is different from that color. The summer is different from the winter. This human is different from that human. This experience is different from that experience. The mind differentiates or separates all of these things, thankfully. Otherwise, we would not have learned anything over the course of our existence. We would not have learned that this red berry poisons us and that red berry nourishes us. We would not have learned that this animal can be hunted and eaten, while that animal, which is also able to be hunted and eaten, is more likely to eat us. Without this truth of the differentiating and separating capability of the mind, humans cannot have developed to the level which we now exist. And another important truth of the mind, and this is another important puzzle piece that is slightly different than just the fact that the mind is great at separating. But another important truth of the mind is that as soon as there is awareness of more than one thing, comparison and differentiation occurs and opposites are created, or better said, opposites are perceived. There is this and there is that. There is big and small, dark and light. There is here and there. There is hot and cold, black and white, sweet and bitter, pretty and ugly, nice and mean, good and bad, etc., etc. Their mind perceives the difference in the physical manifestation of all things, and then compares them or differentiates them in relation to everything else that can be perceived or experienced, all to better understand them. And this comparison is what naturally creates the concept of opposites, which are a reality following differentiation, and another of the mind's methods or mechanisms for understanding more about the nature of our existence and our experience in this physical world. And the circular and balanced nature of existence lends itself very well to perceiving opposites. There is a perceived beginning and a perceived end. We perceive a start to the day and an end to the day, a start to the night and an end to the night. We perceive a start to the spring and an end to the spring, with a start to the summer and the end to the summer, and a start to the fall and an end to the fall, a start to the winter and an end to the winter, until it all happens over and over and over again. It all keeps going on, and we rarely maintain awareness of any of it as a whole day, a whole year, a whole cycle, or the totality of anything whole. We focus almost entirely on the differentiation, and thus almost entirely fail to observe or remember or have any awareness of the whole, any whole. To further this understanding, imagine there is only one thing in the entire universe. Imagine that you are not even part of the universe, but are somehow able to observe and perceive only this one thing in your entire experience. You have no capability to differentiate between yourself and this one thing, because if you could, then there would no longer be just one thing, there would be two. So when there is only one thing, there can be no differentiation and thus no comparison. For example, try to describe the one thing in all existence that you just imagined. Is it big or small? Is it light or dark? Is it round and smooth or jagged and misshaped? Is it fluid or solid? Is it black or white or yellow or blue? If there is only one thing in existence, then none of these adjectives or descriptors can possibly exist. If there is only one thing in existence, then what is small or big? What is dark or light? These things cannot and do not exist because there is nothing else to compare it with or differentiate it from. If there is only one thing in existence, then it is absolutely true that it is indescribable. There can be no thoughts about it. There can be no words to describe it. Actually, if there is only one thing in existence, all thoughts and words disappear. This one thing can simply and only be. It simply and only is because it exists. And all you can have is awareness or consciousness of its being. And this concept is another critical puzzle piece that's going to be very important as we assemble the puzzle and begin to see the clearer picture. And this holds true for any system in any level of existence, be it physical or otherwise. If we did not differentiate the parts of the day, we could not describe a full 24-hour day as day or night, light or dark, warm or cold, morning or evening, or anything else. Hours, or rather time, could not even exist for us. If we only experienced the day and perceived the day as simply one thing and did not dissect it and separate it into a bunch of smaller things to better understand it, then there would be no comparison, no differentiation, and really no words to describe it. The day would simply be. The day simply is. Everything that exists would simply be, without description, judgment, or prejudice. Of course, it is natural for the mind to differentiate, and as I already said, without this mental capability, our existence would be as passive as a blade of grass. But this repeating and cyclical revolving nature of everything physical, coupled with the mind's critical capability to differentiate and separate, creates a concept of duality in the mind. And it's really important to reiterate yet again that duality is completely natural. But without understanding or awareness of the mind's differentiating and dualistic nature, it becomes near impossible to move beyond that duality into any understanding of singularity. And singularity is where we are heading. So while moving beyond duality into singularity is incredibly useful and necessary for fully understanding existence and being, the dualistic nature of the mind is also incredibly useful for beginning to understand this full model of existence and being. And in the next episode, we're going to get back to the Big Bang now that we have covered duality and the indescribable characteristic of singularity, to understand a model of existence that is not half of the story, but the full story. So, thank you very much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode, which is called The Model of Existence, the Full Story.